Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Hi, folks. Here we are back at it. Rush Limbaugh and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network, the nation's most listened to radio talk show, the most eagerly anticipated media broadcast each and every day. This one right here. Glad to have you with us. Telephone number 800-282-2882. If you want to be on the program, the email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. Okay, we have panic starting to set in the Democrat Party and in the drive-by media. President Obama is out claiming that people not voting for Hillary, men not voting for Hillary, is due to sexism, and that men need to try to get past that. Well, what was it when men didn't vote for her in 2008? When he opposed her in the primary of the Democrats, there was a sexism then that men didn't vote for Hillary back in 2008. We also have polling data that is throwing things upside down. Here's one of the biggest reveals in polling data today. We come to find out that, and we mentioned this yesterday, as evidenced by early voting and other research, black turnout, projected black turnout for Hillary Clinton is way down. The enthusiasm African-American voters are showing for Hillary is nowhere near what it was for Obama in either 2008 or 2012. Now, the reason this is important is this. All of these polls from the drive-by media all year up until a week ago, and maybe even up until a couple of days ago, have just assumed a similar African-American turnout in their models as happened in 2008 and 2012. They just assume that blacks will turn out in the same numbers for any Democrat. And that projected turnout has contributed to the huge lead in many of these polls that Hillary has had. Now they're having to rethink this. And it is one of the reasons why the polls are tightening, is because that projected turnout, African-American turnout, has been way amplified beyond what current research shows it will be. Now, that could change between now and Election Day. I'm just giving you the snapshot as of today. In the ABC tracking poll and in the Investors Business Daily poll, there is a stunning bit of information. The Washington Post ABC tracking poll, Trump and Hillary basically tied. I mean, Trump, I think, is up one or Hillary's up one. But when you get into the internals, there are two things. Trump has opened an 8-point lead. It's tied today. The tracking poll for ABC is tied. Trump has opened an 8-point lead in honesty over Hillary Clinton in the ABC poll. And also in the ABC poll, and this has the media freaking, and this has the Democrats freaking, Trump is winning big with women, white women who do not have college degrees. That's a group that turned out in massive numbers for Renoldus Magnus in 1980. The media is stunned because their belief is that Hillary is going to walk away with every female demographic group, college educated, not college educated, you name it. Trump is winning big with that subset of female voters. That was not factored as well. In fact, in the Investors Business Daily tip poll, the headline is Trump's women problem appears to have disappeared. I think all of this is why Hillary went out yesterday and started screeching about how terrible Trump was with women. And do you know who introduced her? She's brought back Alicia Machado. 3 weeks since that news was made, and she's gone back to the well with Alicia Machado. I think the Hillary tank is empty. I think they've run out of things to say. I think all they've got is that Trump is a misogynist reprobate. And they're panicking because they're seeing women, certain demographic groups of women, flocking to Trump now. I think women are maybe seeing the difference here between crude comments and compromised national security and dishonesty, what have you. Now, it's not to say, this is a quote from the Investors Business Daily poll, it's not to say there isn't a gender gap. There's still a big one. But Trump's support among women has improved 5 points in the past 3 days in the wake of the FBI's stunning announcement that it is looking into a fresh batch of emails relating to Hillary. Oh, reminds me, I got an email question last. I'm so thankful for this. I'm thankful every time somebody shocks me back into reality. You know, you sit here and you do this long enough and you assume that everybody knows the foundational basis of everything you talk about. And I could not be faulted for thinking that everybody listens here regularly is up to speed on what this Hillary email thing's about, and the FBI reopening the case. I got an email last night from somebody with a very simple question. Rush, I still don't understand what this is about. Could you tell me why it's such a big deal? I'd be happy to. Especially now we have more data. I can tell you what this is all about now. It has grown. It used to just be about Hillary Clinton and Obama and whoever else that she was emailing, trafficking in classified information. That's not just what this is about. What this has become about is what has been going on at the Clinton Foundation. The reason Hillary Clinton used that private server was not convenience. The reason Hillary Clinton set up the private server in her basement in her home in Chappaqua was not because she didn't want to go to the hassle of setting up a government account. She set up a private server because she wanted to shield and hide what she was doing as Secretary of State related to her foundation. That should have been nothing. Once she became Secretary of State, she should have essentially the foundation been in the equivalent of a blind trust. But it wasn't. Hillary continued to solicit donations. She had others soliciting donations from foreign governments and foreign leaders while she was Secretary of State to her foundation for the express purpose of selling influence. This is what she's trying to hide. This is what the Democrats are desperately trying to prevent Comey and others from finding and releasing. This is about so much more than simply trafficking in classified data. Were it not for the Clinton Foundation, there probably wouldn't be a Clinton email scandal because James Comey would have wrapped that up with his July press conference. What has happened since the July 5th press conference is that FBI investigators looking at Anthony Weiner have found evidence of nefarious activity of the Clinton re-election team, the Clinton campaign, and the Secretary of State's office coordinating fundraising for the Clinton Foundation, and that has ended up on Anthony Weiner's computer and Huma Abedin's computer. And here's the rub. The FBI agents on the so-called Hillary email classified document team have now asked for permission from Loretta Lynch to see Clinton emails dealing with the foundation, and Loretta Lynch is blocking them. That's what this is all about, and I'm so thankful for the person. It's a friend of mine sent me an email last night. Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, is blocking the FBI from examining Clinton emails in connection with its investigation of Clinton Foundation. You have heard that there are two investigations, one of Clinton and her classified data emails, and the other of the Clinton Foundation, and they're examining the selling of access. They are examining Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Chelsea and anybody else there actually soliciting donations to the foundation and soliciting payments to Bill Clinton to make speeches or to become a consultant while she was Secretary of State. This is an ethical violation that is far beyond anything Richard Nixon even dreamed of. She is selling access while Secretary of State to foreign governments and foreign entities. She is essentially putting herself up for bid. She's putting United States foreign policy out for sale. And there's also an on-the-come aspect of this. Donors are assured that Hillary's going to run for president and that she's likely going to win with that, years ago when this all kicks up. And it's those emails that the Clinton classified email FBI team has run across, and they want to see them. And Loretta Lynch, the Justice Department, is blocking the FBI from examining Clinton emails in connection with its investigation of the foundation. And that investigation is every bit as serious as whatever Hillary was doing, trafficking in classified data on her homebrew server. In fact, Andy McCarthy, looking at this, says that were it not for the Clinton Foundation, there probably wouldn't be a Clinton email scandal, because Comey's already put that to bed. He put that to bed in July. He said, well, yeah, we found these violations, we found these irregularities, but we didn't find any intent. We didn't find any knowledge that Ms. Clinton breaking the law. But that's not the case at all with what has been learned so far about what they were. The Clinton Foundation, Jim Kallstrom, former New York office head of the FBI, was on Fox the other night. They basically called the Clinton Foundation a mafia-like operation, an organized crime operation. And it may well be. I mean, he would know. Kallstrom is the guy who bugged John Gotti's Ravenite Social Club and got the goods, unlike Cosa Nostra, in that regard. It is essential that the FBI's Clinton Foundation investigators get access to all of the thousands of Clinton emails, including emails recovered from the computers of Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson and her laptops. The agents must have the time they need to piece together all of this evidence, follow up leads, and make their case. Because everybody knows what's going on here. It's just now a matter of collecting evidence and being able to make the case. So that's really what this email scandal has evolved to. Again, it's about much more than simply Mrs. Clinton as Secretary of State dangerously and haphazardly trafficking in classified data. It has become an investigation into the Clintons leveraging her position as Secretary of State to raise money for their foundation and for them personally, as in personally hired to do speeches or become consultants for companies, in exchange for what? I mean, if the Secretary of State has a foundation and you're soliciting money for it, and you are Ahmed Salib Sahim Skyhook Maktoum from some Middle Eastern oil state, and you're going to, what do you think you're going to get for it? You're buying something. You're not just giving them money because you like them. The Clintons have been selling United States foreign policy, both as Clinton Secretary of State and on the come with Hillary as a potential future president. This is serious, serious stuff. And a lot of people have email fatigue. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about the email. This is actually quite large now, folks. And it's not going away no matter who wins the election. It most certainly is not going away. And you've got some FBI agents who are livid at the Department of Justice shutting them down, trying to find out evidence about this. There are two different U.S. attorney's offices working on this case. The Eastern District is in Brooklyn. The Southern District is in Manhattan. The Eastern District, which has the case, Loretta Lynch ran it for 6 years, and everybody working at the Eastern District was one of her hires. So there's political simpatico there. She's now the Attorney General, made so by Barack Obama. It was Bill Clinton who made her U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District in Brooklyn. So she is politically tied inexorably to Obama and to Bill Clinton, and by extension, Hillary Clinton. That's why she met with Bill Clinton on the jet, on the tarmac in Phoenix. That is why the fix is in. They're trying to get the fix in. The FBI investigators who want to see the evidence that the FBI, looking at the Clinton Foundation, has found and dredged up, being denied, because they say there's two different investigations, we're not going to let you see it. This is why also that there is, shall we say, unsettled attitudes within the FBI. There are agents who know full well that they are being stymied in their effort to discover the truth about one of the candidates running for president. I mean, it's a volatile situation. I have no idea how it's going to turn out, but that's why this email thing has become so important. It's about the Clinton Foundation now and what was and has been going on over there. So one other thing, we've got George Will. I cannot tell you how this disappoints me. George Will was way back long ago when I was, still spinning records as a disc jockey, was an idol of mine. I remember I met George Will in, it was Dallas in 1992, a Republican convention. I was there, having been sent there by a radio station in Kansas City, wanted to get me out of town, so they sent me down to Dallas. So go down there and prepare commentaries, and then send it back, or we might air them, we might not. And when I was there, one night at the convention, I went to the basement of the hall where all the network trailers and trucks were, and I sought out the ABC truck, because I just wanted to introduce myself to George Will. And I did. I found him, introduced myself to him, and I explained to him how much I admired his work and how his work had inspired me to want to get better at what I do. And now George Will said on TV last night that he hopes for a Hillary Clinton landslide, because a Hillary Clinton landslide will emancipate the Republican Party from talk radio. The Hillary Clinton landslide. I can't tell you how devastating that is. But he said it. We've got the soundbite. Look, there's lots here. We got Mike Pence coming up here in about 10 minutes as well. He's going to be calling us. So sit tight, my friends. We're wound up. We're revved up. There's all kinds of stuff you do not want to miss today. So hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, the cheating and the violations of ethics and laws taking place by Democrats in this campaign, maybe not unprecedented, but our knowledge of it is unprecedented. First, Donna Brazile feeding Hillary Clinton questions, and Hillary was obviously prepared for them, questions on the water quality problem, Flint, Michigan, for example. Jeff Zucker at CNN, terribly disappointed, doesn't know what happened to Donna Brazile, got rid of her and so forth. What a crock. Everybody knew what was going on. I mean, this is the synergy between the drive-by media and the Democrats is undeniable. And to act like you didn't know what Brazile was when you hired her, for crying out. But then there's this. We talked about Peter Katzik, the number 2 man let's see, this guy is he DOJ or FBI? I get these things commingled. Anyway, this guy went to school with Podesta. It's been learned that he sent Podesta an email May 19th, 2015, warning him about the email investigation and future investigation elements. This guy Katzik was warning the Hillary campaign of what the nature of the investigations into her were. In other words, this would be like a detective telling a suspect what's coming so the suspect could make moves to escape. That's what's happened. Welcome back, Rush Limbaugh here on the cutting edge of societal evolution. Peter Katzik, number 2 at the Justice Department. He right behind Loretta Lynch, went to school with Podesta, is a huge committed left-wing Democrat, and the WikiLeaks dump is now producing emails from Mr. Katzik to Podesta, who runs Hillary's campaign from all the way back starting in 2015. One here from May 19th, 2015. Peter Katzik, John Podesta. There's a House Judiciary Committee oversight hearing today where the head of our DOJ Civil Division will testify, likely to get questions on State Department emails. Another filing in the Freedom of Information Act case went in last night or will go in this morning. It indicates it'll be a while before the State Department posts the emails. So the Clinton campaign is being kept up to speed and being given heads-up warnings about where the investigation into Mrs. Clinton emails is headed. This degree of, I don't know, unethical, some people would call it cheating, is being revealed daily now by WikiLeaks and other sources. We have Mike Pence, the vice presidential candidate and running mate for Donald Trump, has joined us on the phone. Governor Pence, welcome back to the program, sir.
Great to be back on, Rush, and great to be back in Arizona today.
Well, let me ask you something specifically, because we're now getting down to nitty-gritty time, and as you know, we have bifurcated media. If you look at friendly media, say on our side, you'll see evidence that the gap is closing. You'll see evidence in polling data that some preconceived notions are not true, that Mr. Trump and you are doing better with women and Hillary's not doing as well with the African-American vote and turnout as projected. Then you go to their media and you find out you guys don't have a route to 270, despite all this other news over here that you just don't have a pathway to 270. What is your assessment of where you are right now?
Well, I only believe what I see and what I know. And what I can tell you is campaigning across this country with Donald Trump. We were together yesterday telling the truth about Obamacare, telling the truth about how President Donald Trump, with a newly reelected majority in Congress, is going to repeal Obamacare and replace it with free market solutions. We were in Philadelphia. But I get it. The enthusiasm out there, Rush, is like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime. I mean, I really do think Donald Trump has given voice to the frustrations and aspirations of millions of Republicans, independents, and many Democrats across this country like no one since Ronald Reagan. And we see it every day. Got a big rally waiting for us here. We're headed to New Mexico, then we're headed to Colorado. And Donald Trump is crisscrossing Florida today, and just the sheer enthusiasm on the ground. People know we can be stronger. They know we can be more prosperous. They know we can uphold our highest constitutional ideals in appointments to the Supreme Court. I think that's why I truly do believe Donald Trump is going to be the next president of the United States.
Well, from the first moment I talked to you after you were chosen, you expressed how you were proud, that you were excited to be on the ticket, and you have been telling anybody who would listen that Trump is much more than what the public image or criticism of it has been. And I have to tell you were right. I mean, he's in Miami right now. I'm watching him on television. He's on message. Yeah. He's talking about Obamacare, just like you said. He's not being distracted by extraneous events. Even Chris Cillizza at the Washington Post has a piece today on how damn good Trump's speeches are now.
Well, we're glad for the accolades of wherever they come from, but frankly, I've been watching him since the Republican National Convention. He's been traveling across the country giving meaningful, substantive speeches on everything from ending radical Islamic terrorism as a threat to our country, about ending illegal immigration, about reviving our economy through tax cuts and repealing Obamacare and having smarter and tougher trade deals. I mean, and his commitment to appoint men and women to not only the Supreme Court, but all of our federal judiciary, who will uphold the Constitution in the tradition of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia. He's been talking about this for months, and I truly do believe that whatever you're seeing in the mainstream national media, Rush, you get it. The American people want to be stronger. They want to be more prosperous, and I truly do believe that we're just 6 days away from a great victory for the American people and really a new beginning in our nation's capital.
Well, the mainstream media, as I've reviewed today and prepping the show, Governor, there's some panic in certain places there. Real panic. For example, Mrs. Clinton yesterday reintroducing Alicia Machado. 3 weeks after that story was buried, she's out there claiming that the only reason to vote for her is to keep Donald Trump because women don't like him out of the office. And that campaign, to me, seems as they've run out of gas, that they've run out of things to say. You guys seem invigorated and really encouraged and upbeat and positive and committed. It's a totally different picture from the of the two campaigns. What do you think you have to do here in the next 6 days to keep this momentum that appears you have? What do you have to do to keep that going?
Well, I can tell you what Donald Trump told me again this morning, what he tells me every time we talk, is we just got to go earn it. You know, I mean, we just got to go out there and take our case directly to the American people. I mean, this election is not going to be decided by, you know, the pollsters and the pundits and the political elites. It's really in the hands of the American people. Early voting's been underway for some time in many states, and this election is really, I think most Americans have come to conclude it's not just a choice between two people, it's a choice between two futures. And I really do believe that Donald Trump's message of a stronger America, rebuilding our military, standing tall in the world again, reviving our economy the way Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s through tax relief, regulatory reform, repealing Obamacare, and appointments to the Supreme Court, and passing an ethics package in the first 100 days that'll really drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. We've got to, you know, the years, the 30 years, and no one's covered the Clintons as thoroughly as you have over the course of your career. 30 years of pay-to-play politics and literally the politics of personal enrichment flowing out of the Clintons' careers. The American people have had enough, and they don't want to see that continue. And that's the kind of politics that we're going to reform in ethics laws in Washington and start a new day in our nation's capital. And that's all going to come to an end the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States. You know,
our economy has not been worth talking about for 8 years. We haven't had a quarter since Obama's been president. We haven't had 1 quarter of at least 3% economic growth. But one of the things that has been fascinating to me as an observer is that Obama and his party have never been held accountable for it. George W. Bush in 2012 still got blamed for the economy, the near financial crisis in 2008. Obama has managed to escape any accountability. But I think, would you agree when I say that you and Mr. Trump have begun to change that dynamic and you're tying this putrid economy to Hillary Clinton and Obama?
Well, I think the American people are tying it to their policies, not just the last 7.5 years.
Well, I hope so. That's what has to happen.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton wants, I always tell people on the stumps, Rush, she doesn't want the same policies. She wants more of the same. She wants to increase taxes by $1 trillion. She wants to add single-payer socialized medicine as an element of Obamacare. She expressed her ideal at a speech in Brazil as being open borders when it comes to dealing with the issue of illegal immigration. More regulation, more taxes, more Obamacare, and clearly more of the same kind of bad trade deals that have shipped jobs overseas. I'm in Arizona today. We've actually been able to document almost 13,000 jobs specifically lost in Arizona that specifically went south of the border to Mexico since NAFTA was signed into law. I mean, we saw the same in heartbreaking news in the state of Indiana when Carrier announced they're pulling up stake, taking a couple of thousand jobs to Mexico. But so Hillary Clinton's really doubling down on it. I think the American people know that we can put time-honored, conservative, common-sense principles into practice and revive the economy, not based on government stimulus, government spending, and government picking winners and losers. We can revive this economy by letting the American people keep more of what they earn, cutting business taxes, repealing Obamacare, rolling back regulation. And it worked in the 1980s. Frankly, it worked when John F. Kennedy did in the 1960s. It's going to work again when a president, Donald Trump, steps into the Oval Office.
The only thing that gets bigger with Obama policies is government, not private individuals, not private wealth. Quick question. I know you got to go. One question.
Yeah.
What is your reaction to Governor Kasich writing in the name of John McCain and publicly saying that's who he's voting for?
Well, look, John Kasich is a colleague as a governor, and I've known him for many years. But obviously, we're disappointed to not have his support going into this election. But candidly, the support we're getting all across the state of Ohio, I know, is deeply meaningful to Donald Trump and me. I was actually just the other day, I was at a pumpkin show in a little small town called Circleville, Ohio. There must have been 20,000 people in the street. The folks insisted that I take to the microphone at the middle of a four-way intersection. I stood up and said I was going to be campaigning in Cleveland later that night with the next president of the United States. And in all four directions, the crowd just erupted in applause. And I just have to tell you, Rush, the support we're getting all across the Buckeye State, I think is emblematic of the fact that Donald Trump has articulated an agenda for a stronger and more prosperous America, and it's resonating with Republicans, with independents, with Democrats. We'll let political leaders make their own decisions and announce those decisions, but I think people across the political spectrum are responding to Donald Trump's leadership, especially in the state of Ohio. We're grateful for that, as we are in every state. But the other thing I'd say to you, Rush, is something before I go is,
Sure.
Everywhere I go, I tell people that it really is it's encouraging to see independents supporting Donald Trump. It's encouraging to see Democrats supporting Donald Trump. But my message to my fellow Republicans and conservatives is that we need to say with one voice to our fellow conservatives and Republicans out there that it's time to come home. Time to come home to elect Donald Trump as the next president. It's time to come home to reelect strong Republican majorities in the House and Senate to partner with our new president. And it's time to come home to make sure that Hillary Clinton is never elected president of the United States.
Well, I agree. The people on our side who are proudly, publicly admitting that they will take action that if they succeed will elect her, beyond my comprehension. I literally don't understand it. But I do. I mean, I actually do when you get down into the weeds with them, understand it, but commonsensically.
I'll tell you, though, Rush, honestly, what's most encouraging to me is you're seeing this in some polls, too, is Republicans are coming home. They know the stakes of this election. They see the vision Donald Trump is casting. They see the choice in this election. But that's a great message for your tens of millions of listeners all across America to reach out to neighbors and friends and Republicans who haven't yet made their decision.
Hey, I got an anecdote. I can tell you a woman was in line to vote for Trump and was listening to the program last Friday and changed her mind. Vote for Hillary. Was going to vote for. Never had voted Democrat in her life. Sent me an email today, said she was in line to early vote for Hillary, and the line was so long she left. She's listening to my program, heard me announce that the FBI had reopened the email investigation, and she's now voting for you. So we have little anecdotal stories like that all over. I think you're right. I think there's momentum that you have here, and I hope you're able to hold it for the next 6 days.
Well, we're going to work our hearts out, and obviously we just appreciate your voice and your principled leadership and consistent conservative stand for so many years, Rush. But
I appreciate
this is really a moment where we can choose a stronger America. We can choose a more prosperous America. We can choose an America that stands without apology on our highest constitutional ideals. And to do that, we need to make sure that we elect Donald Trump as the next president of the United States, reelect strong Republican partners in the House and in the Senate. And I promise you, Donald Trump and I and our families are just going to work our hearts out to go earn the right to serve the American people come Election Day.
Governor Pence, thank you for the call. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Thanks, Russ. God bless.
Mike Pence is in Arizona preparing for another full day of campaign. These people are indefatigable out there. They talk about how hard they are going to work. They are working hard now. 6-7 appearances a day combined. Quick time out, my friends. We have barely scratched the surface today. I'm just telling you, don't go anywhere. Okay, I want to conclude this George Will story because there's a lesson here. Just to repeat, George Will has been one of my heroes. He was, along with Mr. Buckley, one of my conservative idols from I don't know how long ago. And I found a way to introduce myself to him in Houston. Houston or Dallas, whatever it was, wherever the Republican convention was in 92. No, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. It was Houston. It was Dallas in 84. Dallas in 84, that's when it was. I had not yet gone to it. It was in Dallas, 84. It was the second term convention for Ronald Reagan, and I scoured the basement of the convention hall there to meet George Will. I hung around outside the ABC trailer, and I told him how much I admired his work and so forth. And then when I went to Washington to do a program for a series of programs for a week in the mid-'80s, I asked George Will if he'd be a guest, and I sent him, he was a baseball fan, I sent him a suitcase that had been used by George Brett during a record season of 1980 as a souvenir, and he came on and we talked. I haven't spoken to him much in recent years, but he was on Fox. Take it back. ABC News website Powerhouse Politics. Jonathan Karl was speaking to George Will, and here he openly talks about this election and expresses his desire for a landslide Hillary victory.
It depends partly on the size of Mr. Trump's defeat. If it's a narrow defeat, that's the worst conceivable outcome for Republicans, because then it will be the old stab-in-the-back theory that but for people like Paul Ryan or Ben Sass or lesser figures like George Will, all would have been well. Mrs. Clinton may win by 4 points, but well over 300 electoral votes. That would help the Republicans. The Republican Party has to do several things. First, it has to somehow emancipate itself from its thraldom to the indignation industry of talk radio and certain cable personalities that I think have a paralyzing effect on the party when it tries to deal with things like immigration. Until the Republican Party gets right with minorities in this country, it's never going to win another presidential election.
Well, it's very... Look, I know this civil war is coming, and I know that no matter what happens, we win, we lose, I'm going to get the blame by somebody. But I think somebody needs to tell George Will it's not talk radio anymore. You look at Facebook and Twitter, people are not saying, hey, Rush Limbaugh says. They think it themselves now. They don't need talk radio for guidance and what to think. It's easy to spot Democrat destruction, and people don't want any more of it. Hillary Clinton beginning to panic. The truth repeated again about what this email scandal is really all about. More polling data. And we'll address some details of what George Will said when we have time. All coming up, plus your phone calls, too. And we are back. Rush Limbaugh here, the Excellence in Broadcasting Network, the nation's most listened to radio talk show, most listened to media broadcast. And we are here at 800-282-2882, the email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. Look, that's right, eibnet.us. eibnet.us. Look, I know the George Will comment, the Republican Party is never going to win the presidency unless it gets right with Hispanics and other minorities. It's a Chamber of Commerce bromide, Chamber of Commerce run now by pretty much leftists and so forth. I think this is all going to be stood on its head. If Trump wins this thing, look, we've got evidence here as part of the show prep I have here. Hillary is not generating interest in the African-American population anywhere near Obama. And the interesting thing, or the key thing about this, is I mentioned in the first hour, all of these polls that all year have been projecting Hillary at 10 points, 8 points, 11 points, 12 points, whatever, they've all made an assumption. And that is that the black vote is going to show up in the same number and with the same enthusiasm as it showed up for Obama in 2008, 2012. Well, there's a lot of data to suggest now that that's not the case, and the Democrats know it, and the Clinton campaign know it, and they're panicking over it in certain sectors. The early voting, it's not turning out that way at all in Florida. This is the things that are upside down right now. In addition to that, Trump is doing much better with certain demographics in women than anybody projected or thought. We are learning here that so much of the polling samples that we get, the poll results, are based on historical precedent that are being projected to current day, such as the African-American turnout for Democrats. There are assumptions made that it's always going to be there. Now, we know how the African-American vote is going to go. The turnout is a different matter. But even in this case, I think Trump represents the first Republican to come along in a long time that could upset that turnout ratio. We won't know till Election Day. The same thing with women, but so much conventional wisdom here, ages and ages of conventional wisdom is perhaps being stood on its head. It's really exciting to follow and track this stuff. Let me go into more of the polling data just to illustrate it. Let me review, in fact, starting with the, this would be the Investors Business Daily and Tip poll. Trump's women problem appears to have disappeared. Now, they make the point here that there's not a gender gap. Still is a gender gap, and a big one, but Trump's support among women has improved 5 points in the past 3 days in the wake of the FBI's stunning announcement that it's looking into a fresh batch. There's another poll that shows Trump's support with women, white women, non-college educated, is just skyrocketing. It's a demographic that came out in droves for Reagan in 1980. A new poll has Clinton 45, Trump 44 in Michigan. Now, Clinton was up as much as 13 points over Trump in Michigan just a few weeks ago, and she's in Michigan. She's been spending time in all of these blue states. Michigan is considered the birthplace of the phenomenon known as Reagan Democrats after working-class whites began to abandon the Democrat Party in Michigan starting in the mid-'60s. They rejected the anti-war left, and the rising liberal wing ended up supporting Republicans. But in 1992, they went back home, so to speak, the Reagan Democrats went back to Bill Clinton and pretty much haven't supported a Republican nominee since. But it looks like it's starting to shift here, particularly in Michigan. Los Angeles Times, where the presidential race stands today. Donald Trump, 47.8, Hillary Clinton, 42.4. Last night on Fox, Larry Sabato and I think Karl Rove were both savaging the LA Times poll. In fact, many in the drive-by media have been savaging the LA Times poll since that LA Times poll first surfaced. They have just been ripping it apart as unrealistic and inaccurate and not worthy of any attention. Washington Post, Clinton 46, Trump 46, and it is in this poll that Trump is cleaning up with women who are white women that are not college graduates. And it's got the media buzzing and because nobody expected this. Also, in the Washington Post ABC poll, Trump has opened an 8-point edge on honesty, even though the race remains tied overall. And in the midst of all this, the media, according to a story here in the Washington Examiner, the media fear an FBI bombshell is going to hand the election to Trump. And let me repeat again what this FBI investigation is. I hate to be redundant, but remember, folks, if you heard me in the first hour, there are new people tuning in all the time. Question last night I got in an email from a friend. Rush, I don't get this email. What is it? I thought it was over with. There was nothing to see there. Well, it is true that Comey put to bed back in July the whole notion of Clinton trafficking in classified data with her emails, but it's become much more than that. What this is really all about, and the reason this has been reopened, is the Clinton Foundation, folks. Because of the laptop of Huma Abedin and Carlos Danger, and a number of other things FBI investigators have found, they are now looking into let me just tell you, the reason Hillary set up that private server, this is it in a nutshell. It's not because she was lazy. It's not because she just wanted to have it something close by and make it more convenient. That's not why she set up her email apparatus separate from statedepartment.gov. The reason she set it up is because she's trafficking in questionable behavior. The Clintons were selling access via their foundation while she was Secretary of State. They've been doing it since they founded the foundation. Don't misunderstand. It's the reason they set this up is to sell access to themselves. Hillary becomes Secretary of State after failing to get the Democrat Party nomination in 2008. She begins selling access via the foundation. If you wanted to buy Hillary Clinton, or if you wanted to buy U.S. policy, you donated to the Clinton Foundation. She couldn't have that action taking place on State Department servers. Freedom of Information Act requests that would have nothing to do with that would have produced it. She couldn't dare have any of that discovered. That's why this server exists, is to hide what the Clintons were doing in two areas: getting rich personally off their foundation and selling access to the United States government, with Hillary as Secretary of State and then on the come as perhaps the next president. So they're soliciting donations while Hillary is Secretary of State. Clinton staff members are soliciting donations to the foundation using Hillary's private server. This is what has been learned. FBI teams want there's an FBI investigation of Clinton Foundation, separate from Hillary's server. They're two different FBI investigations. The people who have been looking into the server and Hillary's trafficking in perhaps classified information have come across evidence that connects Hillary to the foundation. They have asked that team at the FBI for evidence that they have found. And Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, is refusing to furnish it. So the FBI investigators who are seeking evidence on the Clinton Foundation and what Hillary was doing it in connection with her private server are being denied that evidence. Loretta Lynch is trying to shut it down. That's what this is all about. The reason Hillary did a private server, if you know nothing else about this, because it's gotten into the weeds so deeply now that people may have exhausted their emotional reservoir to even care about it, but I'm telling you, you should. And for this reason, the reason she set up, the reason she and her husband set up, the reason she and her husband and her campaign set up a home email server was to be able to sell access and solicit donations to the Clinton Foundation while she was in service to the United States government as Secretary of State. A clear violation of law, ethics, you name it. Who knows what she's promising donors? Who knows what Bill Clinton is promising donors? Who knows? But they're selling access. They're taking money. They're taking personal money to make speeches, to be consultants at companies or whatever, and their foundation is getting donations from people who have business with the United States government. She's Secretary of State. This is how, ladies and gentlemen, over half of the United States uranium supply ended up in Kazakhstan. A Clinton donor gave enough money to Bill Clinton. Do you realize this guy that arranged for the uranium transfer, he's a Canadian, arranged for the uranium transfer from the U.S. to Kazakhstan, donated $100 million to the Clinton Foundation. His name is Frank Giusti. At the end of this sordid tale, half or more of our uranium supplies in Kazakhstan, brokered by the Clintons on behalf of a donor. It happened while Hillary was Secretary of State. Well, she can't have the emails that her husband and her staff are sending back and forth regarding this. She can't have that on State Department servers. That's why this private server was set up. For those of you who've resisted, this is who the Clintons are. It's who they've always been. Whitewater, you go back to the Whitewater, chump change Candyland compared to what they've been doing lately. And it's got to stop. This is selling access to the United States government, selling access to government officials, Secretary of State, potential president. It's worse than unseemly. But this is why the issue is not going away. It is why she set up the private server, is to be able to engage in all of this without it ever being discovered via standard Freedom of Information Act requests of State Department servers. It wasn't because she was lazy. It wasn't because she didn't know. It wasn't because she was ignorant about how computer systems work or networks are set up. It wasn't because she wanted it to be convenient. It was to hide what they were doing. It was to hide and to obscure exactly what they were doing. More polling data from Reuters. Low gas prices and President Barack Obama's high approval ratings are key factors that favor Hillary Clinton winning the White House in next week's election, according to a model from Moody's Analytics that has accurately predicted the last 9 presidential elections. Clinton is forecast to win 332 electoral votes against 206 for Donald Trump, according to Moody's. It's a projection based on economics. And they are projecting a win for Hillary based on economics. And for example, one of the economic figures they are using to predict a Hillary win is the increase in real personal income per household. What real increase in personal income per household are they talking about? The Democrats themselves tell us that wages haven't gone up in 15 years. They blame Republicans for it. But Moody's says that, and they're using government-issued economic numbers, such as unemployment, and the increase in real personal income per household. Their point at Moody's is the economy is roaring. The economy is humming. And everybody is going to vote to keep it humming and to keep it going. And that means they're going to vote for Hillary. So that's the Moody's report. However, it's contradicted in other places you look. Democrat strategists, this is for Real Clear Politics, Clinton should be in panic mode over the enthusiasm gap with black voters. Another executive in the Democrat side said nothing she can do. It's over. Calypso Farrakhan, Louis Farrakhan's out there saying that Hillary Clinton is Hitler to black people. Now, think what you want of Calypso Louis, but he's got people that follow him. He's got African Americans that treat him as the gospel. He's out there saying that Hillary Clinton is the same as Hitler when it comes to black people. Leslie Wimes, president, Democrat African American Women's Caucus, was on MSNBC to discuss the Clinton campaign being in panic mode about low voter enthusiasm in the black community. It's over now. As far as the African American community is concerned, she had time back then to get into the community and get people out to vote, but the numbers are the numbers. There's nothing she can do now. What I said before is she didn't have the luxury of being Obama. We are not as enthusiastic about seeing the first woman as we were about seeing the first African American be elected president. Then from the Daily Caller, pollsters claim blacks are more excited about Hillary than they were for Obama. A contradictory bit of information. Democrats on MSNBC saying she's lagging so far behind in black turnout. But a poll here, Times Picayune poll, there's a bunch of them that are being amalgamated here that indicate blacks are more excited about Hillary than they were for Obama. What Hillary is doing and where she's campaigning doesn't bear that out. So, again, you boil it down and nobody knows. It's just, but it does appear that there is significant momentum on the Trump side. I'll let you hear some Hillary sound bites that indicates this. I want to get your phone call started, too. So sit tight, folks. We're just going to try to get as much of this in as we can. Folks, I don't mind sharing with you how frustrating it is to do this show every day. Don't misunderstand. 12 noon gets here every day, and I've got it ready to go. I'm loaded for bear. And then stuff keeps happening. And it's newer than what I had, so I feel compelled to throw it in, and I get all out of whack here. I've got dynamite stuff I intended to get done in the first hour, still haven't gotten to it. Bear with me. It's all going to get done before we finish today. I'm going to start on the phones now in El Centro, California with Sandy. I'm glad you called. I appreciate your patience. Hi.
Hi, Rush.
Sorry, wrong button.
Decades ago, George Will did not initially support Ronald Reagan. And he, like so many elites, don't understand that you don't tell us what to think. You share what we think, and we appreciate you because you express it so eloquently, and you allow us all to know that there's millions like us. And another thing they don't get is you respect us. And that's something that Trump and Pence do. They respect us. They're reaching out to people while Hillary's calling us a bunch of deplorables. And it's a very poor reflection on George Will and elites like John Kasich and others that they support through their words and actions someone who hates a large group of us and someone who's a liar, who's crooked, who's corrupt, and who killed 4 people in Benghazi.
Well, let me tell you what I think George Will means. I don't think that he has any interest in the things you just said, relating to an audience and all that. That's not what he's afraid of. What he means by the Republican Party is going to end its enthralldom with talk radio. What he really means by that is that the Republicans are afraid to engage in the action they should engage in. They should be more cooperative with the Democrats on immigration, for example, but they won't because talk radio is going to have people like you phoning them and emailing them and voting against them and primarying them and so forth, and they are afraid. So George Will believes if talk radio weren't here agitating you about Republicans, that Republicans would have the courage to do what they all know they need to do, but they're afraid to do it because they're afraid of me or talk radio in general or Fox News or what have you. But I guess you're right in a sense that it's a belief that you guys are end up as mind-numb robots who don't think for yourselves. You simply buy whatever I spoon out each and every day. I guess that you may have a point about that. I always thought George Will was above that kind of thinking that's robotic itself. Anyway, appreciate the call, Sandy. Back in just a second. Here's Herb in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Hey, Herb, what's up? What's happening? What's going on?
How you doing, Rush? You mentioned earlier that the DOJ, Justice Department, is going to block or is blocking the FBI investigators from seeing any of the Foundation emails. Yet they gave them a warrant to search Carlos Danger's laptop in New Aberdeen. So they may come across a whole treasure trove of emails, and sure enough, something could pop up that has to do with the Foundation.
Yes, there are 2 investigations. Right. Let me take another stab at this, see if I can make it less complex. There are 2 investigations, and there have been. We only recently learned of an FBI investigation into the Foundation, but it's been going on for a long time. It's being conducted by a completely different team of FBI agents that are under the purview of prosecutors at the Eastern District of New York in Brooklyn, which is the office that Loretta Lynch used to run for 6 years, having been appointed to run it by Bill Clinton. Obama then plucked her from the Eastern District of New York to make her Attorney General. The 6 years that she was there, she staffed it. All of the prosecutors and the staff people are her employees still at the Eastern District. And as I understand it, that's the office that has the Foundation investigation. The FBI works for the DOJ. The email investigation of the Clinton server that everybody knows about is happening, I think, out of the Manhattan office, or at least under the auspices of the Manhattan Southern District of New York in Manhattan. That office has come across, in the course of its investigation of the classified aspect of Hillary's behavior, they have come across emails on this Carlos Danger thing and the laptop that he and Huma were using. They have, after that discovery, asked the other team for everything they've got on the Foundation. It's that's not being shared. The data that the Eastern District FBI team has on the foundation, it's not the FBI stopping it, it's Loretta Lynch. Loretta Lynch's Justice Department is blocking the FBI from examining Clinton emails in connection with its investigation of the Clinton Foundation. An investigation is every bit as serious. And here's the rub of this is that were it not for the Clinton Foundation, there wouldn't be a Clinton email scandal because Comey already put to bed the fact that there was no crime committed. Well, there was no intent to commit a crime as she was trafficking in emails that might have been classified. Those had nothing to do with the foundation. We didn't know that while that was going on, the FBI had another foundation investigation going. When the classified data email team came across the Huma Abedin and Carlos Danger series of emails, because they were investigating him, they found that Huma, having told them she'd submitted everything, may not have been truthful. So they need further evidence in addition to what they've got, and that's where they're being stonewalled. Andy McCarthy at National Review Online, who used to work at the Southern District of New York, Manhattan office, has detailed all this in a column today. And he says this is why agents on the FBI's Clinton Foundation team wanted to get their investigation out of the Eastern District office and move it to the Southern District in Manhattan. The Southern District has a tradition of relative independence from the Justice Department and a well-earned reputation for pursuing political corruption cases aggressively. The U.S. Attorney at the Southern District is Preet Bharara, and he is known for prosecuting Republicans and Democrats, politicos who have engaged in corruption. The Clinton Foundation FBI agents were said to be barred from prosecutor shopping by the FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe. This is the husband of the woman who Terry McAuliffe sent $600,000 for her campaign for the Senate. McCabe is number 2 at the FBI. McCabe is telling the FBI team on the foundation to go pound sand. We're not letting you move over to the Southern District to move your investigation over there. We're going to keep it here at the Eastern District and you're shut down, essentially. Over at the Department of Justice, we have Peter Hadzik. This is the guy who went to school with Podesta, who is essentially a plant at the Department of Justice, who is and has been keeping Podesta and Hillary aware of every stage of the FBI investigation into her emails before things happen. So the Hillary team has this wired at both the FBI and at the DOJ, and it's McCabe who is refusing to let the FBI prosecutors from the Eastern District move their case to the Southern District, where there is a more cooperative U.S. attorney. I mean, folks, it may sound complicated. It's really simple. Hillary Clinton set up this server to hide what she was doing and her husband were doing in regards to their foundation while she's Secretary of State and a presidential candidate. She didn't want anybody to see what she was doing. It wasn't, again, as I say, because of convenience. It wasn't because she's ignorant about how networks are set up. It wasn't because she doesn't know. It wasn't because somebody advised her. There was a conscious effort to hide what they were doing from Freedom of Information Act requests or any other effort to learn what Mrs. Clinton was doing. In fact, you could almost say that the investigation into Hillary and whether or not she's trafficking classified emails is a distraction that they don't mind at all. Because Comey already said no intent to commit a crime, nothing there. That masks what they're really doing. Folks, I don't know how to make this. I don't even know how to properly characterize this in legal terms, but this is dirty. Here are two people who have become, by setting up a foundation, they leave the White House and they're so poor in the year 2000, they steal furniture from the White House. Bill and Hillary Clinton. Today, their net worth is $350 million, and all they've done is set up a foundation. A foundation they're supposed to use to give money to charity. They have become immensely wealthy. That's what she's hiding. That's why that server is in the basement. And that's what they are still to this moment trying to protect and prevent from being discovered. How was she, how was her husband, how was her staff soliciting payments from foreign governments, powerful foreign individuals? They were being solicited to donate to their foundation and to hire Bill Clinton and Hillary to do speeches, personally enriching them while she's Secretary of State and a presidential candidate. This is the direct selling of United States foreign policy and who knows what else. That's why that server was set up in the basement. We didn't know about the FBI team investigating the foundation until recently, but it's been out there and it's been trucking away. And now there has been some discovery by the original investigation into the classified data aspect of this, and they're being shut down. Loretta Lynch, Justice Department, is blocking the FBI from examining Clinton's emails in connection with its investigation of the Clinton Foundation. That's what they found with the the laptop of Anthony Weiner and Huma Abedin. The Clinton emails are critical to the foundation investigation. When you strip it all away, that's what this actually ends up being about. In fact, the Wall Street Journal had a report last week, and they said that for over a year, the FBI has been investigating the Clinton Foundation for a potential financial crimes and influence peddling. Now that's blockbuster. And the Journal broke this story late last week. Listen to the final 3 paragraphs of the Journal story. In September, agents on the Foundation case asked to see the emails contained on non-government laptops that had been searched as part of the Clinton email case, but that request was rejected by prosecutors at the Eastern District of New York in Brooklyn. Those emails were given to the FBI based on grants of partial immunity and limited use agreements, meaning agents could only use them for the purpose of investigating possible mishandling of classified information. Remember when we told you that Cheryl Mills was granted immunity after, and she turned over her laptop and the FBI was going to destroy the evidence after a cursory examination, and she was proclaimed Hillary's lawyer to create lawyer-client privilege so that she couldn't divulge anything she knew? This whole thing has just been a giant stinker. And because of these grants of immunity and so forth is why the Eastern District is telling the other team, no, you can't see the evidence because you're not entitled to it because we got it after we gave them immunity. So screw you. Well, some agents were dissatisfied with that and asked for permission to make a similar request to prosecutors in the Manhattan office of the U.S. Attorney. And that's when Andrew McCabe told them no and said, you can't go prosecutor shopping. Not long after that discussion, where McCabe shut them down and said, no, you can't have access to the evidence that you need, FBI agents informed the Bureau's leaders, the FBI's leaders, about the Weiner laptop. And that's what prompted Comey to issue his letter on Friday and to say he's reopening the case. Is because what they have learned, not about Hillary's trafficking in classified emails and documents and all, what they have learned about what was going on with the foundation. Potential financial crimes and influence peddling. It's blockbuster stuff that the Hillary team at justice and the FBI is attempting to stonewall. And Comey and that team is trying to get it out. That's where we are. Hope that helps. Back. Okay, Peter Katzik, Department of Justice, number 2, behind Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General. He is the plant. Well, not the plant. He's being referred to as a plant. He's the guy at DOJ who has been keeping the Clinton team one step ahead of the FBI investigation into her. Okay? Now, he's married to a woman named Amy Weiss. She is a quote-unquote public affairs specialist who served as White House deputy assistant and deputy press secretary to Bill Clinton. Do you see how incestuous this all is? This is the establishment. This is the elites. This is these people circling the wagons to protect themselves and their club and what they've got. This is what Trump is up against. This is what Trump and Pence and everybody supporting him are trying to upend. These are people pulling the levers of government, the power they have not for the benefit of the country, but to protect themselves and whatever activity they've been doing, legal or illegal, unethical or ethical, whatever it is. So you've got Hadzik and you've got McCabe. McCabe, number 2 at the FBI, doing the same thing to protect Hillary. Now you've got his wife running for Senate, Terry McAuliffe, who ran the Clinton fundraising operation in the 90s, sending her money to get elected. It's incestuous, folks. Now, these people all have to be Democrats, but there are some Republicans in this whole mix. This is, whatever you want to call it, the establishment, the elites, ruling class. And they are not going to allow anything to happen to each other. And that's what all of this is about. That's what Comey's up against. When you get right down to it. Anyway, I want to go to some sound bites here. This is Hillary Clinton. These are from Dade City, Florida, yesterday. Still obsessed with what she's been doing the past 30 years. This is a point that I made. Why Hillary Clinton's been around for 30 years. What does she have to show for it? She's still complaining about the same things, claiming to fix the same things. 30 years and nothing's been fixed. She hadn't improved anything. Trump picked up on that point. She addressed it yesterday.
Donald always used to say, "Oh, what have you been doing for 30 years?" And I always found that kind of odd because he could Google it and find out. And so, I've been a lawyer, and I've been a first lady, and I've been a senator, and I've been Secretary of State, and I've been a wife, and a mother, and a grandmother, and a friend, and a churchgoer. And for my entire life, I've been a woman. And when I think about what we now know about Donald Trump and what he's been doing for 30 years, he sure has spent a lot of time demeaning, degrading, insulting, and assaulting women.
That's all she's got left in her tank. That's it. And those 30 years, those aren't accomplishments. Those are states of being. She hadn't accomplished anything. This has been my point. What has she done? She hasn't done anything. And if you're a child and a woman in this country, she's not doing anything for you. This woman cares so deeply about our nation's children. Not if you're in the womb, then she is one of your biggest threats. Here she is last night in Fort Lauderdale.
I love this country. I think we already are great. Now I think we can be greater. And I am sick and tired of the negative, dark, divisive, dangerous vision and behavior of people who support Donald Trump. It is time for us to say, no, we are not going backwards. We're going forward into a brighter future.
Holy cow, folks. She's screeching, I am tired of. What does this remind you of?
I am sick and tired of people who say that if you debate and you disagree with this administration, somehow you're not patriotic. And we should stand up and say, we are Americans and we have a right to debate and disagree with any administration.
Oh, my Lord, I can't have this. This cannot happen. It just cannot. In the WikiLeaks dump, a huge story on liberal wealth. Liberal money's longtime strategy to control public opinion and secure advantageous demographics. Also have some sound bites of Trump today in Miami. He was good. He's on message. He's been good, solid 2 weeks. He's been kicking butt for 2 weeks. And other exciting sound bites, people giving their take on what's happening here. All coming up, folks. I am sick and tired of hearing Hillary Clinton tell me how sick and tired she is. Well, you tell me something, folks. How does somebody leave the White House? And she's claimed they were broke. Let's take her at her word. She's broke. They did steal White House furniture. They did, folks. I'm not making this up. It would be too easy for you to prove I was lying. You can Google this. Well, no, you can't. Google is protecting these people, too. Eric Schmidt of Google has been begging the campaign to let him run their campaign for who knows how many years. The level of corruption that exists between wealthy power brokers in industry after industry and the Democrat Party, and therefore the United States government, would shock your average citizen who thinks that the Democrat Party is looking out for them. The Democrat Party is looking out for itself. It is keeping people impoverished by virtue of keeping them highly taxed, preventing them from getting well-paying jobs. The Democrat Party needs people in a constant state of economic need so that they need government to live, so that they keep voting Democrat to provide whatever government gives them. It is insidious. It destroys human dreams. It destroys human potential. In a Democrat Party, it is their playbook. And it is one of the most frustrating things in the world for me to see so many people fall for it. It has been one of the most frustrating things particularly when I see young people when I see young people thinking you can't do anything in this world without government being involved in it, I almost cry. I really do. I read what young people write and what they think, and they want the government involved in everything. They want the government being the arbiter of fairness and unfairness. They want the government using the power to get even with their enemies. They want the government to do everything. And the government that's not what government is. It's not what it's for. Government's not the referee. Government's not to pick sides, but certainly government is not to provide a living for people, because it can't. And if you look at the degree of corruption, how does somebody leave the White House penniless and 10 years later have a net worth of $250 million when all they've done is give speeches? How does this happen? How does a man and wife set up a foundation ostensibly for the purposes of setting up charities that help impoverished people all over the world? How do you get rich doing that? Charities are supposed to give their money away to people in need. How do the people running the charity get rich? But the Clintons have found a way. And neither of them have had jobs since they left the White. Well, Hillary's Secretary of State, but I mean, that doesn't pay anything. What's that pay? $200,000 a year? What does Secretary of State get? It's not enough to acquire a net worth of $350 to $400 million, I can tell you that. And nobody questions it. Whether the Clintons, they're good people, they're nice people, they care about people. No, they don't care about anybody but themselves. Anyway, welcome back, folks. It's great to have you here. Telephone number is 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Mr. Snerdley showed me some. Damn it! I need to put a giant sign here. I'm tired of this. I'm going to stop giving it's eibnet.us. If I say .com anymore, forget it. I mean US. See, I've just wasted 30 seconds here correcting a stupid, dumb mistake. Okay, look, Mr. Snerdley pointed something out to me today. I would not have seen this in the normal act of show prep on my own. Washington Post. It might even be just website only. I don't know if it's even ran in the newspaper. The Inspired Life section of the Post. What is this election missing is the headline. The answer, empathy for Trump voters. I say, whoa, what's this? Empathy for Trump voters? You know what empathy is, not sympathy. It means we need a little bit more understanding of who these Trump people are. So the story is about a sociologist at UC Berkeley who, how many number of years? The last 5 years, is it a she or he? She, a sociologist at UC Berkeley, immersed herself in Middle America, Tea Party America, for the last 5 years. As the Tea Party rose to political prominence at the end of the last decade, a liberal Berkeley sociology professor set out to understand why the white working class, once a strong voting bloc for Democrats, had embraced anti-establishment ideas that put them further to the right of even the mainstream Republican Party. Arlie Russell Hochschild spent time in rural Louisiana over 5 years. That's the sociologist at Berkeley, getting to know people in a state where only 14% of white voters supported Obama. So the premise here is you have a UC Berkeley sociologist who has accepted that forever white working class people vote Democrat. White blue collar people vote Democrat. That middle class, lower middle class Americans vote Democrat. That's just the rule. It's just the way it's, except they're not anymore. And they haven't been for a while. They didn't vote for Obama in either 08 or 12, and they're not interested in Hillary. So this sociologist sets out to find out why. What I wanted to do was take my own political and moral social alarm system this doesn't make sense. Flowery. I wanted to get rid of my biases and prejudices and go out there and actually try to objectively learn who these people are. The main thing I was trying to do was to really see if I could make friends with people, if I could really get close to them. Now, stop and think of this for a second. This is a woman, and kudos to her. Don't misunderstand here. She is a professor of sociology, which means she is teaching kids whose parents are spending $30,000 a year to send them there about sociology, and she feels totally disconnected with white middle-class people in middle America, and she wanted to go see if she could actually make friends with them. They're that strange to her. They are that odd that she wanted to go see if she could make friends with them, if she could really get close. For certain people, these are her words, for certain people, I asked, would you show me the school you went to? Could we visit the church you went to, the cemetery where your parents were buried? They were wonderful people who I came to know in this way. She's shocked. She was shocked that white people voting Republican were normal. She was shocked that they were real. 5 years. She wanted to become their friend, and she was stunned at how open they were and how accepting of her they were and how welcoming to their world they made her feel. What she discovered and then wrote about in her book, Strangers in Their Own Land is the title of her book. It's, by the way, a National Book Award finalist this year. Did you know that? Oh, yes. A National Book Award. I won one year for Rush Revere. I will never win it again. They got it out of the way, but I did win it 1 year. What the sociologist discovered and wrote about is that in America, neither side, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, were not making an effort to understand each other. But especially progressives, she said, like her. The progressives, the left, they are really not making any effort whatsoever to understand other people. She was one of them, she knows. What I expected was a self-centered people, she writes. But I found people who were nothing like that. They were the opposite. They were open-hearted. They were communal. They were very eager to be known. They'd say, thanks for coming. We're the flyover state. People don't care about us. They don't know who we are. They think we're racist and homophobic and sexist and fat. There was gratitude toward me, and I would tell them exactly who I was. I'd tell them I think I live in a political bubble and I'm trying to get out of mine and into yours. Will you talk to me? Stop and think about this now. And this woman, brazenly open and honest about who she is, she really expected a bunch of zombies. Normal white people, Louisiana. She expected a foreign race. She expected people that she would instantly dislike and, worse, would instantly hate her. She could not believe how nice they were. She could not believe how open they were. She couldn't believe how unselfish they were and unself-centered. This woman, I submit to you, is typical of everybody in the media today, is typical of pretty much every college professor today, is typical of pretty much every Democrat today, and certainly every social media liberal. And I don't know where it came from. But this is classic. She thinks she's talked. She went out to find out who the Tea Party is, and she thought the Tea Party was this bunch of zombie, mean-spirited, unaccepting, intolerant attackers. She thought she was going to be attacked by showing up in their neighborhood. And she writes about how overwhelmingly shocked she was at just how opposite they were. Welcoming, nice, tolerant, eager to get to know her, eager to tell her who they were. They understood who she was and what she was doing, and they wanted her to know the truth. Then you get to page 3. She's being interviewed by this reporter at the Washington Post. The question, do you think that they had preconceived notions about you, too? She's already shared that she thought they were zombies and intolerant, racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. So the writer says, well, do you think they thought certain preconceived notions of you, too? Answer from the sociologist, well, you could see brows knit up when I spoke. One woman said that I was her first Democrat friend. I met another woman who said, I love Rush Limbaugh. And I said, the sociologist in Berkeley, I said, I would love to talk to you about that. Meaning she runs into a woman who tells her she loves me. And now the sociologist, now I really want to talk to you. That really, I have to understand. How in the world can you like Rush Limbaugh? The impressions these people have of me, well, you know what they are. You encounter it on social media all the time. So anyway, this woman said to her, well, we love Rush Limbaugh because he defends us. Rush Limbaugh defends us against all the attacks that we get from other liberals and the media and the Democrats. Limbaugh's out defending us every day. And this sociologist at Berkeley was stunned, speechless. She says that reversed the picture of Limbaugh to me from accuser to defender. She arrives in this little area, Louisiana, expecting these zombies and thinking that I am their Svengali. I'm the one teaching them how to attack and how to be mean and how to be intolerant. Then she finds out they're not at all what she thought. Then she finds out they love listening to me. And the reason is that I defend them against all the personal assaults they get. And she's had a total change of heart about me. And all it took was she no longer thinks I'm an attacker. I'm a defender. And to me, to her, that changes her entire perception of me and everybody else like me. Now, what do I do here? I've even been open and honest what I do. I get up, I mind my own business every day, get up, and I see the things I believe in under assault. I see people I cherish under assault, and I come here and I defend them. It's exactly what I do. It is exactly, and I've made no bones of it. I defend the things, traditions, institutions, people that I value and hold dear. Somehow, that has been, I bet this woman never even listened to me. She just accepts whatever else is said about me and all the rest of us, folks, to form this opinion of I'm the kind of guy that if I walked into a room or a church, the first thing I'd do is be scouting for all the liberals, and I walk to them, you pig, you get out of here. I'm Rush Limbaugh, and you're a liberal, and you don't deserve to live. Get gone. That's what they think that I do when I walk into a room. It has to be. But where does it come from? I have no idea other than the usual answers you would give to something, but it's deep. Here's a woman who's written a whole book about, well, not a whole book about how wrong she was, but about how her eyes have been opened about white, middle-class people that used to be dyed-in-the-wool Democrats and aren't anymore. And to me, what's fascinating about it is you expand this to Trump supporters and what they think of Trump and Trump supporters and so forth. These are the people that are in the media. These are the kind of people that are opinion leaders. These are the people who write columns at newspapers and online. These are the people that teach your kids. They're closed-minded, and they're wrong about everything when it comes to who we are and values. And they're also very afraid. That's the thing that I really got. They're scared to death of what they are wrong about. Yeah, I found it fascinating, but it explains and illustrates what we are up against. And she admits her intolerance and how shocked she was the people she thinks intolerant were just the exact opposite. Anyway, we'll be back after this. Don't go away. Hi, welcome back. Okay, you're going to walk me through this again. Where is Obama? Okay. Oh, Obama's in North Carolina. North Carolina, folks, wait till you hear what Obama is saying in North Carolina. I'll get to it in just a second. But North Carolina is interesting because I have two different stories about how Trump is way ahead in North Carolina. WRAL, a TV station in Raleigh, has him up 7. A relatively new poll in North Carolina, has Trump up 7. The other polls, the PPP and all the usual that you've heard of, ABC, Monmouth, have it toss up leaning Hillary, right? I mean, the divergence in polling data in North Carolina is indecipherable. You've either got Trump really, really gaining ground and up 7 and black turnout falling away, or you've got just the opposite, depending on which poll you listen to. But Obama went there. He's there today. That tells me that they're worried about North Carolina. Wait till you hear what Obama... Do you know what Obama's telling the audiences that he spoke to today? He said the day Trump takes office, Medicare checks stop. Medicare or Medicaid? Medicaid will stop day one. Then Trump is going to slow down Pell Grants. And then he said, Trump, they'll probably even dig up Michelle's garden. Now, stop and think about this for a second. This is Democrat playbook from 60 years ago modified. Republicans are going to kick you out of your home by cutting your Social Security, was what every 4 years they said to elderly people. It finally stopped working because there were never any Social Security cuts. And old people never were kicked out of their homes. Now, this is desperation. Do you happen to know, was it a black audience? Was it a university audience? I think it was at Chapel Hill. I think it was Chapel Hill, which is Moscow West. University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I think that's where I thought. Yeah, that's where he was. To tell people Trump's first day in office, Medicaid is effectively over. Medicaid, that's health care for the poor, the infirm, the elderly. Medicaid. Medicare is elderly. Medicaid's for the poor. It'll end. Pell Grants slowed down. I mean, this from a guy who said he didn't want to get involved in the FBI stuff. And they are desperate. I don't know how else you categorize this. And it's dead lies. This is unbelievable. So Obama is at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. That's her main campus in North Carolina. And it is as leftist as any institution in this country is. And here's what he told the crowd there. And it's made up of students, and who knows what the mix is. It's all types. If Trump's elected, day one, Medicaid checks stop. Pell Grants slow down. He also said that grants to predominantly black colleges will be systematically reduced and then cut off. Yeah, Trump's going to defund government funding of black colleges. He's going to end Medicaid, and Trump is going to dig up Michelle's garden. I'm still processing this scare tactic that Obama is using. And the scary thing is there are going to be people who believe it. That's always been the thing that blows my mind about the leftist message is that people believe it. Show up and say that Obama shows up and says that Trump's going to end Medicaid on day one. Whoa, can't have that. No. It wouldn't be possible. No president can do that. Congress. And it's never going to happen, sadly. It's never going to happen. Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security all need to be reformed and reworked. But nobody's going to ever wipe them out. But who knows how many in that crowd believe it. And then dig up Michelle's garden, and then slow down Pell Grants, and then end funding for all black colleges. And he ended up, yes, Trump is going to cut taxes for the wealthiest. Yes, that old standby. Donald Trump's going to cut taxes for the wealthiest Americans and go back to trickle down, which didn't work in the 80s. It never worked. It's been proven that we're going to go back and try it again. Nothing but lies. Born, I think, of panic. Trump is only down one in Michigan. Hillary cannot be all the places she needs to be, folks. All these states that were supposedly in the tank, in a bag, these states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Trump's only down a point in Pennsylvania, up 7, North Carolina, up in Florida, up in Ohio. Hillary cannot be in every state she needs to be, so they've got the surrogates out there, Obama. But, man, this is bottom-of-the-barrel stuff. It also tells you a lot about the audience that Obama thought he had there at UNC Chapel Hill. Okay, audio sound bites. Let's start with number 5. Let's just go in order here. I do have a couple of Trump bites I want you to hear. If I squeeze them in before the program ends. This is last night, Bloomberg Television, What'd You Miss? The name of the show. Co-host Matt Miller speaking with media correspondent Jerry Smith about the Republican nominee starting his own TV network, Trump. They're obsessed with this. I think Trump's going to start his own TV network. They didn't want to win. He's just doing this to build up an audience for the eventual Trump TV network. And that's what they're discussing. And here is this Jerry Smith guy, the media correspondent at Bloomberg.
Maybe Ivanka could have an hour, Rush Limbaugh potentially. So, those are sort of the ideas that are getting thrown out there. But, Donald Trump obviously says he's still focused on the election and doesn't have any interest in a Trump TV network at this point.
Right. I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for my name to be included in all of this. I don't know how many times I've been asked over the years. Well, Fox debutted in 1997. Debutted for those in Rio Linda. And since 1997, I can't believe it. You don't have a show on Fox. Have they not asked you to do a show? No, you wouldn't believe the number of offers. Really? That's right. Well, why don't you have a show? I don't like television. Oh, why not? And I go with the reasons why I don't like TV. Anyway, they're obsessed with that. That's how they're trying to comfort themselves. Trump doesn't really want to win. Trump's setting up Trump TV. For everybody that I've talked to in the Trump network, the last thing on his mind is a news network. I mean, this has been manufactured out of clean air. Pat Caddell, who worked for Jimmy Carter, is on record this week as saying that this is starting to look like 1980, when Reagan came out of nowhere in the last week and he was down 9 and ends up winning with a 10-state, 10% landslide. Caddell is on record. This is starting to feel like that. Well, Ed Rollins is joining Caddell in that. This is Neil Cavuto last night. And he says to Rollins, "Hey, Ed, what's going on out there? Anything? What do you sense, Ed?"
Yeah, definitely there's a momentum shift, and you always want to be on the side of momentum. And my sense is it started before the FBI thing, and very similar to Reagan in 1980. We were 8 points behind. We went ahead after that debate and finished with a very strong finish.
Right. So same show, Caddell is there, and Cavuto says, "Hey, Pat, were Reagan supporters similarly jazzed like Trump supporters are right now? I'm trying to see whether this is a tip-off of something that we might be missing, or whether people are just hopeful this is happening. What do you really think, Pat?"
Crowds were not the indicator. This race had been close. The reason I did not want to debate the last week before the election, I didn't want to step on our incumbent momentum. Reagan helped himself enormously in that debate. Then the race kind of went back and forth for a couple of days. By Saturday, the race was even. On Sunday, the race went to 5 points down, and on Monday night, it went to 10 points down. There was something happening there, which is that once that we had been trying, as the Clinton campaign has been doing, we had pressed Reagan's personality, those traits being too risky and being dangerous. Right. What happened was a break took place in the perception of the election. Same thing here.
All right, so what he's trying to say is that the reason that they had the big shift in 1980 was that people stopped believing them. The Carter campaign, when they were talking about how dangerous Reagan was. You can't let this guy near the nuclear, but he's a Hollywood actor. He's not very bright. You know, he's kind of bumbling and stumbling through. You don't have this guy anywhere near the levers of power. That began to change, Caddell says, the last weekend. And he says it's the same thing that's beginning to happen here, that all of these things that people have been saying about Trump, they're not working anymore. Here's more. Cavuto said, "So you think, Pat, you think Trump can do this?"
Yes. The other thing about these polls is the weighting problem is bad. The Washington Post poll with Trump ahead is still showing a 10-point party margin, which I believe is twice as high as it's likely to be, in which case you're looking at a race where Trump really is probably in there polling 4 or 5 points ahead.
It does feel like the closing days of 80 to me, Pat.
It does, too.
That's Ed Rollins. He ran Reagan in 80. So he had Carter and Caddell and Reagan and Rollins. And Caddell and Rollins, yeah, we're starting to feel the same thing we felt in 80. That's what they're saying. This other point that he made about the weighting problem in the polls, he's right. In the Washington Post tracking poll, even now the one that Trump was up 1 yesterday and it's dead even today, they have a 10% Democrat advantage in that poll. 37% Democrats, 27% Republicans. That is not changing. There's something else in these polls. I mentioned this the first hour. I've got to mention it again. They have assumed, all of these pollsters have assumed that the black turnout will be similar to what it was for Obama in 08 and 12, and they have put that into their projections. If the black turnout's the same, it votes for Hillary. What does that mean for a poll? But the black turnout may not approach those levels, which then further skews these results. But you heard Caddell. He thinks this sample is 10% more Democrats and Republicans. That's absurd. It's more like 3 points, maybe 4. You have the 4%, 3% more Democrats and Republicans. And if you do that, you might find Trump plus 4 in this poll. Look, these are experts in it. They've been there, done that. Take it for what it's worth. We'll be back after this. I want you to hear a soundbite here from Ron Brownstein. This was on CNN today. He's interviewed by Chris Cuomo, and they're talking about the ABC poll. where Trump and the tracking poll, where Trump and Hillary are tied. Listen to this.
In that ABC Washington Post tracking poll, Donald Trump is leading not only among non-college white men, but among non-college white women by more than Ronald Reagan did against Walter Mondale. Now, if that's real, it would be an historic kind of statement, and it would make it very hard for Hillary Clinton in Ohio and Iowa, and probably make Michigan and Wisconsin wobble a little bit, too.
I wanted you to hear that from the actual drive-bys, not just me. Because this is one of these areas, if you listen to them, women hate Trump, they tell you. Women don't want anything to do with Trump. Ew. Women look at Trump. Ew. And Hillary is still out there using Alicia Machado to introduce her. Alicia Machado, 3-week-old news. It's empty in the Hillary tank. And Brownstein points out, you look, it's not just white men. Trump is getting non-college white women in greater numbers than Reagan did against Mondale. That was a 49-state landslide against Mondale. And he said if that's real, that's historic. That's Ohio, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin. And then you put Obama in North Carolina, where they're being told that Trump's going to end Medicaid on day one and then dig up Michelle's garden? I don't know, folks. It's risky to make these assessments and create false impressions, but I don't know. To me, this all reeks of some degree of panic out there on the part of the Hillary team. Something else Obama said at Chapel Hill. If Trump's elected, he'll reverse every single thing I've done on jobs, on health insurance, climate change. Yeah, that's kind of the idea, is to reverse everything you've done and more. That's kind of the idea.